Why do so many bird chicks exist, yet only pigeon chicks are raised on milk? Milk pigeons aren't called that for nothing, they are just weaned. Once thousands of pigeons reach 6 months old, they are paired off and confined together. What seems like arranged marriages actually harbors deep emotions. Before officially becoming adult pigeons, they spend 2 to 3 months of their youth in separation, a perfect time to date and find a mate. During this period, pairs who find mutual attraction become inseparable. You groom my feathers, and I'll give you a kiss. Although the separation area is filled with white-feathered pigeons, experienced workers can identify males and females at a glance. When two pigeons stand together, the one with a bigger head and thicker neck is usually male. If unsure, they'll check by gently lifting their tails, and the truth becomes clear. Just as the pigeons' emotions deepen, their pair is secretly decided, and they're sent to their bridal suite. In the animal kingdom, pigeons are among the few species known for their monogamy. Once they commit, it's often for life. If a mate dies or they're separated, the surviving pigeon often falls into a long period of depression. Even the sweetest of couples may face challenges post-marriage. When it comes to reproduction, male pigeons take their role seriously. As symbols of peace, pigeons usually get along well in flocks. However, when it's egg-laying time, tensions can rise. If the female refuses to lay eggs, the male might get aggressive. You seemed like a caring partner, but turns out you're abusive. Once settled in the nesting area, the pair fully devotes themselves to reproduction. About a week after mating, the female begins to lay eggs. Without human intervention, pigeons generally follow the principle of fewer but better offspring, laying only 2 eggs at a time. After a bit of calculation, the pair immediately starts incubating. While male pigeons may have a hidden aggressive streak, they still make excellent fathers. Whether incubating eggs or caring for chicks, the pair takes turns without shirking responsibility. Unlike other animals, they don't abandon their duties. On farms relying solely on natural hatching, it would be impossible to meet production demands. If that were the case, the boss might as well stand in the northwest wind and starve. To increase production, workers check the nesting area daily, removing eggs promptly. At this point, the mother pigeon's maternal instincts erupt. Even the usually gentle and cute pigeons can show moments of fury. But in the face of absolute human strength, all resistance is futile. Sadly, the mother pigeon's mathematical skills are so poor they wouldn't pass kindergarten. They can only count to 2 at most. If there are fewer than 2 eggs in the nest, the female pigeon will keep laying. Through subtle manipulations, the egg production of female pigeons soars, from the original 20 to 30 eggs per year to over 100. After collecting the pigeon eggs, workers record the production. Each pigeon coop has a performance assessment chart. The higher the production, the longer they live. If production drops, they are sent away. When the female pigeon's body is nearly exhausted, workers allow them to rest while incubating eggs. After all, they still have to take on the heavy responsibility of raising chicks afterward. Workers pour a whole bucket of pigeon eggs with a loud splash into another container. Isn't this rough treatment painful for the eggs? Don't worry, these are seasoned veterans. Not only can they withstand a fall, but you could even play basketball with them without issue. To train the pigeons as mothers, workers use plastic eggs to cultivate their maternal instincts. Stimulated by the fake eggs, the pigeons incubate for 7 or 8 days, during which their bodies secrete a valuable substance. The collected eggs are sent to the incubation room. After inspection, those that meet the standards are placed on trays and moved into incubators for a 17 to 18-day incubation period. After quietly developing for 4 or 5 days, workers retrieve the pigeon eggs and inspect them with a flashlight. Under the light, the fertilized eggs show intricate blood vessels, proving they are alive. Empty eggs, which show no signs of life, are sorted out and sent to the market for other uses. The fertilized eggs continue to develop. Around the 17th day, the once quiet incubation room becomes lively. Baby pigeons begin cracking open their shells, stretching out their tiny pink feet to greet the world. Why do they look so underdeveloped? Was the temperature too high, causing premature births? Not exactly premature, but underdeveloped, indeed. Unlike chickens, ducks, or geese, not all birds in the avian family are born with the ability to walk or forage immediately. Many, like pigeons, are born incredibly fragile, ugly, nearly featherless, and unable to open their eyes, let alone walk or find food. These types of birds are commonly referred to as altricial birds. Before gaining independence, they rely entirely on their parents. In the wild, if an altricial chick is born to neglectful parents, it usually doesn't survive beyond 3 days. However, their underdeveloped state doesn't stop them from trying to move around. The adults haven't arrived yet. Impatient baby pigeons couldn't wait and had already climbed out of the incubation trays. Soon, the workers carefully returned the newly hatched pigeons to the coops, pairing them according to the size and proportions of their parents. The parent pigeons, long tired of sitting on fake eggs, were about to abandon the nest and lay 2 more to incubate. But just when they were ready to start over, their chicks suddenly appeared. It must be said, pigeons are not the most loving creatures. They don't care if the chicks are theirs. If there are babies, they'll raise them and feed them all. The parent pigeons immediately opened their beaks, transforming into wet nurses. After all, the crop milk in their crop sacs had been stored for a long time. During the incubation period, the stimulation from the eggs causes the crop sac to secrete a nutrient-rich substance. Unlike traditional mammalian milk, pigeon milk is a yellowish fluid, rich in protein. Unfortunately, the chicks that hatch later aren't as lucky. There's only a limited amount of precious pigeon milk, and they often don't get to eat it. Instead, they're fed formula feed. Workers grind grains into powder, scald it with hot water, and mix it with milk powder in a specific ratio to create a paste. This nutritious and delicious artificial crop milk is then prepared. Workers carefully feed the chicks 3 to 4 times a day, in fixed amounts and at regular intervals. Unlike the fairness shown by human caregivers, pigeon parents are far less equitable. They always favor the larger, stronger chicks, leaving the smaller ones at a disadvantage. But this bias isn't entirely their fault, it's nature's way. In the wild, stronger chicks have a better chance of survival. To ensure every chick gets enough to eat, workers regularly relocate weaker chicks to other nests. Sometimes, a stepmother's care can be better than that of a biological mother. Placed with companions of similar size, weaker chicks often receive better care. Can you believe it? These slightly unappetizing, scruffy little things are actually the tender, juicy squabs that people find delicious. At around 12 days old, baby pigeons living with their parents must leave the nest. They need to make room for their parents to prepare for the next batch of eggs. By this time, the young pigeons no longer rely on crop milk. Even if they receive it for another week, the parent pigeons have almost no crop milk left to give. As time passes, the young pigeons transition to eating small grains. Workers prepare a mix of grains and feed the pigeons twice daily. To aid digestion, some grains are soaked in water before being served to the pigeons. The more they eat, the more they poop. Looking at the snow-white parent pigeons, you'd never guess how messy their living conditions are. Birds can't control their bowel movements. Wherever they go, they poop. In the pigeon's coop, there isn't even a corner spared. In modern farms, workers regularly replace the bedding system in nests and clean up pigeon droppings daily. The droppings that fall onto the conveyor belts are collected and processed outside the breeding area. During their days of eating, sleeping, and eating again, the baby pigeons grow like balloons, rapidly expanding. In just 17 to 18 days, they weigh nearly 1 pound. This means they're just a few days away from being sent off. These plump pigeons, almost entirely made of meat, are they really edible? In fact, true squabs not only have tender, flavorful meat, but are also healthier than you might imagine. For pigeons raised primarily for squab production, very little technology is used during their brooding period. They don't even need vaccines, as they rely entirely on the immunity inherited from their parents, which lasts until they leave the farm. However, for pigeons bred as breeding stock, vaccines are essential. Not all pigeons qualify to become breeders. In addition to being strong and healthy, their lineage must be pure. Inbreeding is strictly forbidden on every farm. At around 1 month old, young pigeons intended for breeding shed their baby feathers and leave the farm to enter the selection process. To prevent disease, workers give them a vaccine shot near the base of their wings. In the following years, they'll receive 1 or 2 additional vaccinations annually until retirement. For squabs that meet the weight standard, workers load them into cages and transport them to the slaughterhouse. Here, a single assembly line can process thousands of pigeons in just an hour, sending them to the afterlife. With the operation of the machines, these once lively pigeons become silent in just 1 second. After bleeding, plucking, and removing their internal organs, what remains is just an empty shell. Finally, workers wash them thoroughly, organize them, and package them. This is the raw material for braised squab. Once they arrive at a restaurant, they undergo marination, air drying, and final preparations. A deliciously crispy and tender Vietnamese delicacy is ready to be served. Thank you for watching. See you next time.